Welcome to the second part in the series of redesigning the motorcycle, starting with the headlight spoiler. Now this is the second part, so we're going to be doing the scanning, and actually we're even going to move on to the design in this part as well, because I've decided that for this part we don't really need to do much with the scanning. So let me explain. So you should be able to see from this angle why I want to redesign this area. Without the spoiler, it's quite clear that the headlights is kind of styled like a praying mantis. And then when we put this underneath, it's not in the correct position because it still has the bolts. It still manages to give that extra bit of volume just to give it a little bit of extra bulk. So I realized that actually pulling it down a little bit more, I actually quite like the look of that. Checking with the forks lock to lock, we should be okay with anything we do coming out and going rearwards. But if we do just go straight back, that's when we're going to run into some problems. So in the redesign of this part, we're not really constrained by many other components, really just as long as we have clearance around the headlight and we secure to the mounting points, and any other features we have do not interfere, we're good to go. So with this part, it's not so critical that we get a good quality scan of this, but it is more important that we get a good scan of the surrounding area of the headlight, especially the mounting area and anywhere that we might be modeling close to, like the side of the headlight. So because of that, this video is going to be less about the scanning and more about the actual design of this part. So I'm just going to prepare the scanner and then we'll get started. So last year I picked up a budget entry-level 3D scanner. This is the Ferret Pro from Creality. Now I'm not going to be doing a full review of this, but I would like to share how it's been useful and how I've used it in my design of some custom parts. So this is everything that we have in the box. We have the handle. We have the phone mount, which also acts as a mount for the scanner. It comes with a Wi-Fi module, but I'm not going to need that. This is to connect to your PC from a distance, but I think that's only useful if you can actually still access the PC, in which case I guess you're going to be in a garage or something, which I am not. This is the stand, so if you want to put something on a turntable whilst you scan it, we can just screw that in on the bottom, or just an extended handle. So what we'll first do is attach this adapter to the handle and then slide in the scanner. Now one way of doing this would be to attach the Wi-Fi module on the front, but I won't be using that. So we can do everything straight with the mobile phone device connected by USB when we're not in front of the PC. If I'm in front of the PC like I am now, I can just connect the scanner directly to the PC. The difference in performance between using a mobile phone and your PC is probably something around 20 frames per second. So on my old Samsung S21, I get about 9 to 10 frames per second. And on the PC, I'm getting about 30 frames per second with the scanner connected directly. Now I'm going to be using an infrared scanner. Now they do have a few weaknesses. One of those is that it's quite difficult to get a decent scan of very dark surfaces, even more so when they're tucked into a dark corner. And the other is kind of the opposite. It's overexposure. So currently I'm blocking the sun, or blocking the bike from the sun. But if I move away, if the sun is shining directly on here, you're going to see that glare from the sunlight. And if you're trying to take a scan of that, that's where it's going to lose the tracking. It's not going to be able to detect that surface, and then it's going to keep disconnecting from the scan. So my advice would be to not scan in direct sunlight, but we could use something like a diffused light because it doesn't glare so much on the surface. It's just a dull glow. So if you have a decent workshop with some diffused lighting, that's great. But if you're like myself and you're just making do with what you have, outdoors underneath some general lighting can sometimes do the trick. So I'm going to be taking a scan of the whole area around the headlight, from the left side, the right side, underside, and I'm going to include the forks just for a sanity check for clearances. Now since I'm using a budget scanner, I'm going to have to connect my phone up and then just get scanning. Now, I actually lost tracking quite a few times here, so I have a recommendation that if you are having this problem, start in the area which is causing the problem and then move out to the surrounding area. So if this seems interesting, like it's going to fit into your workflow and you're interested in buying one, I'll leave a link in the description down below. It is an affiliate link, so we'll get a small bit of commission and no added expense to yourself. So the first thing to do when importing data from your phone to the PC is to make sure that you are on the same Wi-Fi network. And then you want to come to Open, Import from Phone. And this tells you to open the application in your phone and select the imported project on the home page and click Share to PC. So I have my scan that I've just taken outside. I'm just going to click Share to PC and click Scan QR code. I'm scanning that on my phone now, very quick. Now it's sharing the data over the Wi-Fi connection. So we'll just see how long that takes for a moment. Okay, so I've actually scanned this section a number of times. This might not be the best scan that I've got, but we'll take a quick look at it and see how it turns out. So it looks quite rough, but once you process this, it should improve. We've captured the most important details, which is the mount location, except I did forget that I do have the bolts installed at the moment during this scan, which means it's not perfect for mating up to that flat surface. Luckily, I have another scan where I think that I don't have those bolts installed, so I should be okay. So for this case, we're not really trying to get a perfect design. We just need those couple of points of reference and around the sidecar, just so we can have an idea of what our design is going to look like. Okay, so we can see that we have 55,000 points and 1,870 frames. We're looking at scan 1, and this is the raw data right now. It's unprocessed. So right now, there's a few things we can do. We can start clearing up some floating points that we don't need. We can come over to delete section after we've lassoed it. So we can do this just to remove the loose points, which we definitely do not need. It's not part of our scan. You'll start finding a lot of this. This is really just going to help make working in Fusion much lighter. The less points, the better. And the less points over here, the more detail you can keep in another area as well. So that's another reason to clean these up as much as you need to. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it like this, I think. Okay, so from this point, we can do one of two things. We can either go to Fusion, which is kind of like the manual process of converting this to a mesh and then kind of fixing it if we need to, or we can click the one-click process. And that's going to essentially be like, if you don't really know what you're doing here, you can kind of do this to generate your mesh automatically, and it should try to fix everything as much as it can. So let's test that method. So it seems that meshes around 100,000 or more might cause some crashings. Let's see if we can bring this down to below that 100,000. The number of triangles we'll just leave at 3 million for now. We can actually reduce that later on. Okay, so now we're running the one-click process. And we can further adjust this later just to try and refine those triangles down to a usable amount. And we can also then further reduce it inside Fusion itself. So just finishing the final part of the process, which is the color mapping, which is essentially putting the photo over the scan so we can get that realistic looking image. Okay, so this is the output from the scan. And we can see that actually where the bolt heads are, we really do lose a bit of detail here. It's because we're using the texture, but we can go to the mesh, removing the texture. And I would still say I'd prefer a scan without the bolt heads for a cleaner look there. We can further smooth these surfaces, but I think it hasn't done a bad job. So I believe I have a cleaner scan though, so I'm probably going to use one of those for the rest of this process. Okay, so this is an assembly that I already have prepared. I have the bike packaging reference, which is a scan of a bit more of the bike because I have a few other projects that's using this area. We no longer have the bolts installed here, so that's ideal. And we have a scan for reference of the original headlight spoiler as well. So what I did with this was I actually used the geometry to find a center plane and then assembled this into this assembly in a kind of installed position relative to the other scan. Now from there, what I've done is I've created an offset. So from the central plane to the bolt hole is about 50 millimeters. So I want the origin of my new component to be exactly where this is going to be assembled to the headlight. So that's going to be starting with this fixing point here. So getting this plane allows me to be sure of the offset from the central plane. So when we hide off the rest of the bike, I have a couple of sketches on this surface, and we can use those to create a plane that represents this surface, the mounting surface. And then we can create a circle sketch on that plane. And that helps us to create an axis. And that gives us basically everything we need to define the origin of the new component. So if I create a new component now, and then we assemble it. So this will be the headlight spoiler. And I'm going to just constrain this using these constraints. So let's go origin first to that point. So that's great. Now I want to align the Z with the vertical. So let's align the Z with the vertical. And then let's get the X in line with this this long extended line here. So X with this line. Okay, so that gives us the starting condition for the headlight spoiler. So we can hide the original and then start working on our custom design. So when I'm trying to come up with my concepts, I like to use an app called Sketchbook. And what I typically do is I'll bring in a picture of the bike and I'll say on a layer at 50% opacity. That way when I create sketches over the top, they stand out a little bit more. And you'll see here, this is like one of my first drafts of like what I was thinking to do for this headlight spoiler. And what I'll do is I'll start breaking it down into pieces. So you can see here in my layers, I've got a number of pieces, and then eventually they're colored in, and then they're merged together. So what I eventually came up with is this. Now I'm not really an artist, so the lighting and everything could be completely wrong. But to see it on the screen like this on the bike really helps me to complete the visualization and then kind of figure out in my head how I'm going to model this in 3D CAD. And you'll find that this app is available for all the different platforms. So the first thing I do is, since I know that the mounting location is 50mm offset from the central plane relative to the bike, I create an offset surface from this origin, which is going to represent my mirror plane later on. So I'm going to start with creating the mounting feature, because that's going to be like our main datum, our main point of contact with the frame. So we start with the flat surface, and then we include the slot for the fixing to be located. This is really for reference whilst we build the rest of the part around it. So then we define the geometry of this mount feature, starting with the outer profile, extruding that with the draft. And there's the first feature complete. Now there's always multiple different ways of modeling something, so you don't have to follow anything so strictly. Find something that works for yourself. In this example, you can create like a two-stage offset for your main surface and then your secondary surface, and then use an intermediary surface to join the two. That's a very simple way to model something like this. For the side surface, I tried to use the loft feature to create this geometry, but you do have to be very careful when using lofts to make sure that your curvature isn't distorted. I'll show you what I mean. So this is the first surface created using the loft feature. You can see from the zebra analysis that the front section of this surface looks okay, but towards the rear, there's a lot of distortion due to the difference in curvature. Now, I didn't actually want any curvature in this part, so what I've done is I've recreated it using a straight extrusion. Now at this point, we're getting pretty close to be able to join the whole thing together. We just need to tidy up some of these surfaces, the edges where they come together, to make sure that we don't run into difficult geometry, especially when we're including rounds. Now in industry, we're usually going to do the whole thing in surface modeling, and the reason we do that is we can control the design for manufacture and the aesthetic points. Say where the split line is, for example, we would model that directly in the model. But in this case, we're using 3D printing, so we don't really have those issues to be concerned about. And strange bits of geometry are not going to be an issue for our 3D printer, like it might be for a plastic molding. So this model was a bit of a break away from my usual method of being a bit more accurate and precise, trying to use best practices from industry, and just being a little bit more free with it. And this is the final design that I'll be going with. I probably will do a redesign in the future, but at the moment I'm just going to go ahead. I want to get this printed and get it installed on the bike and see how it looks. Now I've got these two recessed surfaces here. Now originally my idea was to maybe install some LEDs, but since that's a bit of a way off, for this version at least, I'm just going to be going with some reflective pads. I have put additional ribs in to help increase stiffness and tried to create a kind of winglet kind of feature that isn't too obnoxious, just to give it something extra. Now this part is bigger than my 3D printer can print, so I am going to have to figure out how to split this into multiple parts so that I can print them separately and put them together. And that's going to be in the next video. But what does this part look like if it's on the bike? Well, if we bring in the scan again, we can see roughly how it looks. Like this is the original part. It looks very small, very discreet. If we bring in the new part and overlay it, it's much bigger. And whilst it does fill up a little bit of space at the side and at the back, I don't think it's as effective as I was hoping for originally. Perhaps the scale of my design is a bit different to my sketch. It's something that I'll have to consider going forward, whether I can continue to take up more of that volume. Anyway, if these videos on this series get at least 50 likes, I will share the 3D CAD for anyone to 3D print these for themselves. If you want me to make them and send them to you, just send me a message. It would be good to have an idea of how many people are actually interested, so I can have a look at seeing whether it's actually going to be cost effective to do so. In the next video, we'll be going through the 3D printing, the finishing, and assembly to the motorcycle. So, tune in next time. I'm going to see you then.